This week, experts from around the world have been in Canada discussing HIV and AIDS. The International AIDS Conference is a huge talking shop. Its aim has been to improve treatment, care and prevention for those affected by the disease around the world. 25 years after the disease was first noticed, the number infected with HIV now tops 45 million, and 25 million people are estimated to have died from AIDS-related illness. So what is life like for those who've been affected? Well, the development charity Plan invited the children's news agency, Children's Express, to Kenya to see for themselves. In a moment, we'll be speaking to George Anagas, an education and development advisor for Plan, and also 17-year-old Ella Parry-Davis, who you'll see in this report shortly. But first, it starts with another budding journalist, Ghislaine Akabusi.
Josiane is my mom. This is my mom when she was sick.
Anne is 16 years old. She lost her mother to AIDS 3 years ago.
This picture and that picture.
I was just wishing myself, why does she have it? So I was not knowing who gave it to her and what's the cause. She was going to die anytime.
Now she lives with her grandmother, who looks after 9 children. All of them have been orphaned by AIDS. No one in this family has a job, and they struggle to feed themselves from a tiny plot of land. Anne's sister Agnes took care of her mother when she was dying. She was just 14 at the time. Things are still hard.
Yes, it is very difficult indeed, because I have to go to school. Sometimes I have to think about my sister, my young sister and brother, how they are going about. For me, I have to suffer in school, because sometimes I go without, because my grandmother is jobless, she don't work.
Thika is in the heart of Kenya. 6 years ago, at the time when Anne and Agnes' mother got infected, it had the highest rate of HIV and AIDS in the country.
If there's anywhere that demonstrates the impact of AIDS, it's this school. There are 800 children here, and more than 100 of them have lost their parents to AIDS. That's more than 1 in 10.
These children are being taught about the dangers of AIDS by other young people who've set up a youth group here supported by the children's charity Plan. 7 years ago, 3 people in 10 among 20 to 45-year-olds had HIV or AIDS. But now, partly thanks to projects like this, the rate has dropped to 1 in 10. Young people here believe they can make a difference.
We can be creative. We have the ability to change our society to be a better place for each and everybody, especially for the young children.
So you tell us your name?
People here say children teaching other children is definitely working.
Plan believes that youth are able to communicate with each other effectively without any intimidation, using their own language to air out issues that they feel affect them and their lives.
If young people here continue in their fight against HIV and AIDS, the story of orphan teenagers like Anne and Agnes won't be such a common one.
Well, we heard from 17-year-old Ella Parry-Davis there. She's here now along with George Anagas from Plan. Thanks very much for both joining me. Ella, if I can start with you, it must have been extremely distressing to go out and see that for yourself.
It was. There were times when it was really difficult. I mean, we spoke to people who have HIV. We spoke to one girl who was raped at the age of 3 years old and is now HIV positive, which, I mean, you can imagine it was really difficult in that situation.
And what were the main things that you wanted to try and get over in your report?
We wanted to get across the message that young people need to be in the driving seat of the fight against HIV and AIDS, because we're the age group that's mostly affected by it. We account for like half of HIV infections globally, and so we need to be doing something about it.
George, it's fantastic, isn't it, that Ella went out and did this, and as she says herself, children have got to be involved. They can spread the message.
Children definitely need to get involved because they need the tools and opportunities to be on the driving seat. This is something that affects them, not as victims, but really affects their future. And there's a lot more. Over 50% of the population in Africa are young people, less than 18 years old. They've got to answer for this in future. So, yeah.
And what else would you like to be done in Britain to try and get the message out there?
I think it's not a problem of them over there. It's not a problem of statistics. It's not an issue about it's happening somewhere else, so we're not least concerned about it. It's something that young people in the UK should take in the forefront. Last year, over 1,500 schools took part in Lessons for Life to tell the stories of children affected by AIDS, to be the spokespeople for young people all over the world facing this problem.
Hello, you must have learned so much about the condition. Has it made you feel differently about it?
Definitely. I mean, you hear statistics like, 1 in 5 people have got AIDS, and it's terrible. You feel awful about it. But when you meet people, it hits you so hard, and you can't. I mean, you can't understand before you've gone. Before I went, it was a statistic, and it wasn't real. But now, you feel it as well as knowing it.
Do you wish more children had the opportunity that you had to see it for themselves?
I think if a lot of young people from the UK were given that opportunity, then we'd feel completely differently over here about the situation there, definitely.
George, what has the International Conference on AIDS achieved so far?
I think what's been useful about the International Conference on AIDS is still putting the AIDS on the agenda, saying that it is still a threat to humankind, and bringing the voices of people, vulnerable people, from the communities, from the grassroots, in societies that were affected. I think that was really, really important because they were talking about from experience. And a lot more investment is now coming to get people the treatment. And it's now about treatment as well as about making sure that AIDS doesn't just get away with it and affect more people. And I think that's one of the things that really came out of that conference. It should have gone further to ensure that the communities that are happening, the communities which are affected, especially in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, are consulted. The governments are brought to book to actually account for what is happening to the people and what steps they are taking about it. I think AIDS needs to be taken a lot more seriously than it has been done before.
Ella, making this film, has it made you want to do more to help people with AIDS?
Yeah, it has. Meeting people out there, they were so motivated to do something about it. They were making a difference, as we've seen in the package. And it's inspiring, it is, to see how they're living with such positive attitudes, and they're taking every opportunity to make their lives better.
Parra Davis and George Anaga, thank you very much for coming in.